Hi, Brian.
What
Hey,
time
how
you
are
got,
you?
Catherine? You got 7?
It is 7 o'clock.
I'll call the meeting to order at 7 o'clock.
I feel like a town crier.
I have never seen you cry for that.
No, thanks a lot.
All members present, here from the public. Please raise your hand or signify with your. Ryan, how are you, sir?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, good. Haven't met you in person. I read all about you.
Hopefully all good things.
Ryan, we've got you on the agenda, but you're a little further down. What I'm going to do after we get this cursory things by is probably ask that we move you up on the agenda.
Right.
So we'll get to that. But anybody else from the public that would like to be heard? Seeing none, we will move on. Next item on the agenda is item 4, Selectmen's briefing. Item A here, you've got a copy. We have an FOI request that we've consulted with town council regarding. And I've responded in a letter letting the gentleman know that we are preparing the information as quickly as we can.
I think that particular item is on the agenda, right, Bill?
That too. Well, it's under A under first selectmen's briefing, so
Oh,
I
okay.
am mentioning it. And I will also mention, I'll get in my briefing because we're going to touch on this, but I've got a brief briefing. There's no change, unfortunately, in Bob Hurd's recuperation. Still in process. We'll just keep tracking that. Good news is, seems like I give you bi-weekly reports on this, but our 2008 international truck is back on the road again after another $2,000.
Yeah.
Instead of bringing it and transporting it to the international, which would have been about $600 or $700 alone, Joe arranged, we had the mechanic come to our garage. It was a rather severe electrical situation, and he actually worked on it on site. Took a day and a half, but it's up and running. The new bus, and that's not the new bus in the budget we're presently considering, but in the budget that we did last year, was supposed to be delivered today. Was a no-show. We're anticipating it in tomorrow. I'd like to thank was there a question on it?
No, could you repeat that, please, Bill?
The new bus that
Oh, the new
we
bus.
ordered
Thank you.
last year's budget, well, this year that we're presently in, but not the new budget,
Okay.
was expected to arrive today. We're anticipating it now to come in tomorrow. I'd like to thank the Easter Bunny Committee for a successful egg and basket distribution yesterday. I understand there were many participants. Just a reminder, and this is item B under first selectman that Chris had put in, but very important annual budget meeting tomorrow. We ask everybody to please attend and tell your friends. It's an opportunity to voice your opinion on the budget. And we look forward to a big turnout. I'd ask everybody to mute, please.
Was one of 40,000 icebergs born each year along the Greenland coast.
Still not muted.
Yeah, Mike, can you help with that?
Should be all set.
Okay, thank you. Last thing is the Recreation Committee reports that we've had major increases in signups for the basketball program, which is just ending, our swimming program, and the gymnastics. It's nice to people finally getting out and starting to participate.
Okay.
Any questions regarding any of that?
Yes, actually, I wanted to ask about that FOI request.
Yeah,
When the person, what group is that person from?
he has not acknowledged that, and we're told that he does not have to do that.
Okay, I get that. The thing is that he asked for personally identifying, information that's considered, I'm going to use the word privileged. And I was very pleased, Bill, I saw that you crossed off those items, because that would have been an issue.
That was it. On
That's-
advice of
That's why
counsel.
I asked, that is why I asked the question.
Yeah.
I, yeah,
No, I
So-
agree. And, town council did give us favorable opinions on that, that they agreed with us. So we will give
Yeah.
him what he's entitled to, but there's a point of confidentiality that we're bound to keep also.
yeah, and he was trying to break that.
Yeah.
So I'm curious as to what he's using the information for. We have all kinds of situations that we didn't used to have to deal with, that are, in terms of giving out information about employees. And some can be used for nefarious purposes. So anyway, thanks.
We will use as much caution as the law allows us to, and I agree.
That's what I saw.
So.
Yeah.
Item 5, and then I'm going to ask for a motion, but item 5 is acceptance of the minutes of April 4th of 22. Do I have a motion?
April 4th?
Yes.
Yeah, I just, I'm doing a double check on here.
April 4th.
Did you make the motion?
Yes, you
Roger?
make a motion. I'll second the motion. Or I'll make the motion, sorry.
I'll
Rogers
sec-
made the motion.
I'll second it.
Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Motion to accept the minutes of the special meeting of April 6th of 22.
So moved.
Second,
We have a motion made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And last but not least, our emergency meeting of April 13th. Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
We have a motion on the floor that's been seconded. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, unanimous. Thank you. We have an item on our agenda under new business, which is under new business item A, item C. And as you know, this is a review or an overview of the CES report on our town buildings and the elderly housing building. And I would ask for a motion to move that up to next on the agenda. So I know we have several people that are either joining us or going to join us. And I don't want to hold up Brian while we go through all the rest of it. So if I could have a motion to that effect,
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much, folks. All right, Brian, you were on, and thank you for joining us.
All right, well, thank you.
What
You
we're
might have,
anticipating is that you can give us an overview and plus ask any questions that the board may have regarding your report. Maybe you could start with just, what your scope of work was initially and how you got to the report and the final edition of it.
yep. Am I actually able to share my screen? I have a quick,
Mike, can you accommodate us on that?
Yep, you should be all set.
so you guys see my
Yeah.
presentation up?
We do. I do.
Okay, so thank you for giving me the opportunity to come speak with you guys. So I'll give you a little bit of quick background. My name is Brian Hamill. I'm a team leader at Consulting Engineering Services. So we were established in 1994 and we're a full service MEP firm. So we do mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and fire protection design, along with commissioning, as well as sustainable design, solar PV, solar thermal, and geothermal systems. We design and work with architects, municipalities, anything ranging from 400 square foot high schools to 20,000 square foot private residences in New York City or all throughout the country. We have around 140 engineers on staff. We have 6 offices, with our headquarters being in Middletown, Connecticut. We have branch offices in Boston, New York City, Florida, Texas, and we just opened up our 6th in Bozeman, Montana. So CES was pretty much hired to come out and do an existing systems assessment of the fire protection, plumbing, mechanical, and electrical systems throughout your 5 buildings at the town. So those 5 buildings were the Ashford Fire Station, the Housing Authority, the Senior Center, the Milton Town Hall, and then the Town Office Building. We did a full assessment of all the MEP systems there with kind of a focus on ventilation just due to the COVID-19 pandemic. So this is a broad summary and ranking, and I'll kind of get into some more details about each building, and then we can move on to questions and I can dive into deeper. But the way that I came up with this ranking was really based on the COVID-19 and outside air factor for all these buildings. So there are some items in here like upgrading the LED, the light fixtures to LED and other kind of energy savings measures. But the basis of this report was to really focus on COVID-19 pandemic and ventilation and filtration in the buildings. So to get started, Ashford Fire Station, it was built in 2004, and it currently has no mechanical ventilation in the building and no sprinkler system. So the building it is fully heated and cooled. It has heating via a boiler, oil fire boiler, and cooling via the VRF system that's in the building, but it does currently not have any kind of mechanical ventilation at all. So no outside air, no extra filtration coming into the building, and no changeover of that outside air. Moving on to the Ashford Housing Authority. So same thing, it was built in, different, 10 years older, built in 1994. So roughly 28 years old. No mechanical ventilation in this building as well. The fire protection system is getting past its useful life since we are at that 28-year-old mark. And they do have actual ventilation units for the common areas in this space. So some of the common areas on each floor do have actual mechanical ventilation, except for all the actual rooms and actual housing rooms do not. So that's one big ticket item that should probably be looked at in the future. Right now, they just have window AC units and really just rely on operable windows and the exhaust that's currently in the building. So ranking 3rd on our list would be the Senior Center, pretty much saying that all the seniors pretty much spend their time between the Housing Authority and the Senior Center. So again, this building was built in 1994, and it also does not have any mechanical ventilation or fire protection system in the building. It has electric water heater. It has a couple of units that are providing heating and cooling via ductwork, but none of those units are actually connected to the outside air. So they're just recirculating the air inside the space with not really any filtration. Number 4 on my list, which I'll say is probably needs the most renovation, and it's the oldest building out of all these 5, is the Milton Hall building. I ranked this building 4th just because I know you guys don't use this building as much as the Ashford Housing Authority or the Senior Center or the fire station, but obviously this building is, was built in 1923 and is due for an extensive renovation. So no mechanical cooling, no mechanical ventilation, there's no fire protection. You have a boiler that's providing steam heating throughout the building, and that's pretty much it. And then moving on to the Town Office Building. So the Town Office Building was built in 2006, and it actually does have a partial ventilation system. So it currently has 3 air handling units that are located in the attic that provide heating and cooling for each of the floors, so the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd floors. It does have partially outside air, so it has a percentage of outside air that's coming into the return ductwork. So it's kind of mixing some outside air into that recirculated air at around 30%. So it's better in providing that kind of COVID, kind of procedures for how we should combat that with outside air and kind of air changes per hour. but still not providing 100% outside air, which is what we like seeing in new buildings and new construction when we do renovation. But like, again, it's got, oil fire heating throughout. All the equipment is in decent shape. For all these buildings that were built in 2004 and 2006, like the fire station and the town building, they're starting to come up on the end of their useful life of equipment, with being roughly 18 to 16 years old. I usually like to say around 25 years is that sweet spot for when equipment starts to go, and we should start thinking about, replacements of equipment. But I also don't have a crystal ball, and I've seen many boilers last 40 years inside of a building with no issues. But it's just kind of one of those things that at the 25-year mark, we kind of start looking at for doing full replacements. So I'll just say that that's kind of the overall general summary in terms of the COVID-19 and just kind of your ventilation rates throughout the building. Kind of going back to just some other items, there's a majority of buildings that don't have the sprinkler system. So sprinkler system is obviously life safety, and that obviously gets added to the top of our list if a building does not have that currently. Going around through a lot of the buildings, also seems like a lot of the light fixtures are still using fluorescence. Seems like some buildings have swapped to do LED retrofits, and that started to happen throughout some of the buildings, but it was seen that a lot of fluorescents are still being used. And there's some big energy savings in switching to LEDs. And we can go into this later, but Eversource has some pretty good incentives right now that they'll work with municipality buildings and towns to try to upgrade buildings to LEDs. And there's some pretty good rebates out there from the utility companies as well. All the buildings had generators. They were all in different shapes. They bounced between diesel or liquid propane gas, but they all seemed like they were in working condition. And electric water heaters and domestic water systems throughout. So I didn't get any complaints about the well water or domestic water heating at any of the buildings. It was really just us coming in and kind of doing our evaluation of the existing mechanical ventilation systems and then what upgrades you guys can do in the future. So we did put together I think it was roughly 110-page report that kind of documents every building in a little bit more detail. But if anybody would like me to go into any specific building more or any unique items, I'd be happy to do so and answer any questions that anybody has at this time.
At the time, this is Catherine. At the time you were hired, the discussion we had was that we would have recommendations for each of the buildings. And I
Correct.
see that you have some recommendations here, but it almost looks like it's in general, right?
So I provided, so the front sheet and the overall report is kind of the summary and the priority rankings. At the end
Yeah.
of each individual report, I do list out specific recommendations for each building.
Okay. And also, I had asked for some kind of ballpark, really ballpark estimate on what you thought those changes each of those changes would be. And I didn't see that. Did
can
I
put
miss
that-
something?
I did not include that. I will add that and put that together for you.
That would be helpful. I think that would be helpful for the selectmen to understand where we might be able to apply funds or whatever.
Yep. And I will tell you, so we've been doing a lot of these assessments for, towns and whatnot. The pricing and materials right now is through the roof, and I'm sure
We
you all
understand.
are well aware of this. So I will do my best to ballpark it, but it's a pretty fickle world out there right now. We've seen
And yeah.
jobs come in $25 plus a square foot extra, and it's putting a lot of projects just out of budget at the moment.
Yeah, I figured at least the selectmen have a rough cut,
Yep.
really rough cut to assess with.
Yep.
So we could kind of cherry pick where we might be able to make some difference,
Sure.
improvements. Again, you said that these are in priority order.
Yes, I would do them in priority order based on, outside air and ventilation for COVID-19.
Thank you. It was my understanding that the fire department, that there was a relatively simple fix. They had something hooked up backwards that had to do with heating or something like, I can't remember what it was in particular, but I know that when they have some kind of, when they lose power, the area where they need to be most concentrated is actually not working correctly. And it sounded like a fairly simple fix to take care of that. They're actually hooked up backwards. Well, could you elaborate on that a little bit?
So I'm not exactly sure if it's hooked up backwards, but when we were at the fire station, their biggest complaint is that none of the AC and cooling is on the generator. So if they lose power and they all have to be in the building and all in one of those small rooms, whether it's dispatch or just in one of the bunk rooms, it gets extremely hot because none of the AC is on the generator at this point. And that's actually one of the recommendations that's listed on page 4 that kind of talks about, you know, if that was to be done, we might have to look at, you know, possibly generator sizing.
Okay. And Bill, I don't know what the state is of things like lighting, for example, on the fire department. I had Eversource come out and not only did CES take a look at lighting, but Eversource as well to see how they could get their outside lights switched over because they're not all working. And so I don't know what the state of that is at this point in time. Have you heard anything?
I haven't had any follow-up about the fire department from Eversource at all. I know we're working on options and getting estimates on retrofitting the lighting in the town office building and a couple of other projects at Milton Hall, but haven't heard anything specifically on the fire department. I did contact Tom Borman, the chief, and I'm well fortunate for him. He's taken a few days off. He's out of state. Paul is also out of state. And so I don't know, well, we have Roger with us. If there were any specific questions from the fire department, but I know I had heard they were anxious to go over the report.
Yep.
Have you heard any specifics, Roger? Or?
Well, I know that there was some concern, they mentioned that there is some ventilation that might have been missed in the report. But no, that we have a problem with some of the air conditioning there. And whether or not that's listed as in the report as well.
I suspect that's.
They mentioned some of the split and VRF units were not operating correctly.
Yeah.
And those are pretty old VRF units. I mean, they're pretty, I don't even think those are kind of like past models that they don't manufacture anymore. But I mean, that's what it is. It's you know, it's 18 years old. So.
Yeah. Well, again, they if they're not hooked to the generator, they're not going to have that cooling when you have a power outage.
Sure.
So it didn't sound like it was a huge thing to get it hooked to there. And the other thing on the lighting is that we could get rebates from Eversource on the lighting. And it was the outside lighting, and it's a number of those outside lights that are not working, and they really do need to have them working. So I think Tom had contacted me about that. The other thing is, if I understand correctly, the fire department had somebody come in and take a look at something, and they were holding off doing any work on that until they got this report and had a sense of what the town might be doing to help them as well.
Yeah, Paul Varga was telling me that there was a part that had been recommended, but
Yep.
apparently it was a rather expensive part and that they were holding off to figure out just what the long range plan was before they went ahead with that. And I don't have the name of the part or anything. I was going to rely on them to supply that, but can certainly look at that. Brian, being somewhat involved at the time, I was chairman of the Housing Authority with the design factors in the elderly housing. The individual sleeve units that are in the apartments, how do they rate with introduction of fresh air and whatever to the individual apartment units?
Yeah, I mean, it's bringing in pretty much all that fresh air, but the problem is there's really no filtration with it. So that's really the problem. So it's good that, you know, it's better than not having anything, you know, not having any windows open. But it is minimal compared to what code wants now for ventilation air inside buildings, and also just to keep comfort. And it's also really just a filtration. There's no filtration on those little AC window units, and that's a big thing with all these outside air and fully ventilation units.
And
Right.
not to get into a long drawn out remedy, but what's a quick solution for that, Brian? I mean, is there such an animal?
So there's a bunch of different units. So a lot of the units that we're putting in buildings now, and I could do a whole entire presentation on building systems and different ones, but
No, you
they
don't
do
have.
make little small ERVs, which they call energy ventilation units. So it would be a little box with pretty much 4 ducts coming out of it. One brings in outside air. It goes through a heat exchanger core. So you can actually exchange the air streams between the supply and the return, but it doesn't mix the air. But you're actually getting the heat exchange off of it. So your outside air that's 0 degrees is now getting over the return air that's 70 degrees and preheating it before you come into the building. So you don't have to worry about that mixing of ventilation air with the actual outside air and return air into the space. So we're providing either ERVs that just have that core and then ducting them to inside VRF units, like, you know, kind of the units that you would have in like the fire station or some of those other areas.
Yeah,
Or they even go to full units that would provide that energy recovery as well as heating and cooling as well, all in one package unit.
got you. Now that they're in your recommendation in the report.
Yes. Yep. And when I put the pricing to that, I will price it for if we were to go with that system. So you guys kind of have a ballpark.
Very
Good.
good. One other
Um,
thing that I know that we had talked about, and Brian, you and I had a very brief conversation. And I guess the scope of your initial work did not include any evaluation of the solar panels or anything on either the elderly housing or the town office building.
Yeah. So you know, we looked at the electrical components of everything and everything seemed fine, but we actually wouldn't go on the roof and, you know, look at all the panels. But we took a look at all the infrastructure. Everything seems to be working correctly. And it's within that 20 years. So I would say that if you guys aren't having problems with your production, then you should be fine.
Okay. The only other thing I noticed about the no fire suppression, whatever, I assume codes now are different. Well, I know codes are different now than they were when we constructed any of these buildings, but you didn't find anything that was out of code per se with fire suppressants or anything like that in any of the buildings?
No, I mean, your buildings were built before that was a requirement. So you guys are grandfathered in unless you do an extensive renovation.
Okay,
So yeah, there wasn't any like actual like outstanding code issues regarding the fire protection system.
okay, thank you.
I think it's ironic that the fire station is one that does not have the protection it should have.
Yeah.
That's one. The also you had as part of this, you were looking at the energy consumption
Mhm.
versus, you know, improvements in terms of, you know, I'll give you a great example. The Milton, in terms of their heating system and what it costs to heat it. First of all, I will tell you that I was in there. There was an event there in Knowlton Hall proper downstairs. And it was the other day and it was a beautiful 70 degrees day. And the heat was on downstairs in the hall itself. I was shocked that it was still on.
Sure.
I know that the people who work in the library pretty much almost have to open their windows because it gets so hot up there. And the control, I think there's a single control for the heat. And so the way that it's set up, it doesn't really work and we're consuming more energy than we need to. And it's overheating, so to
Yeah.
speak.
So I will say Nolan Hall is an anomaly because you guys still have the steam boiler system there. So that's why you're having all the heating problems. You have an old steam boiler where all the control valves are shot and they're just worn out over time. You have that condensate that's coming out of the steam and it just ends up corroding all the control valves. This is very common in a lot of steam projects I go into. So right now your boiler's on, so you're full steam, no control, and that's what's happening in your building. So really the only way to remedy that would be to just get rid of the steam boiler and just swap it out with like a hot water system. would be your guys' best bet at this point. And honestly, steam is just one of those systems that you have a rupture in a pipe and it just becomes a very dangerous situation compared to just dealing with hot water.
So as I recall, going down into the basement area, we have a frog colony down there.
Yeah.
It's so wet down there that the colony is doing very well.
Yeah, and I mean, just going back to Milton Hall, I mean, it was a building that was built in 1923. So, you know, the envelope, so now you got your heating plant running wild with an envelope that's, you know, inefficient. So that's where all the heating dollars are going.
Okay. Could you just one more time recap in terms of significance, health significance of the priority for these it starts with the fire station?
Yep. So I say fire station because that's your guys' life safety building in your town.
Yeah.
There's guys that sleep in that building if they're on call, and right now there's nothing. There's no mechanical ventilation. There's no filtration.
Yeah.
That's why it ranks first in my list on a COVID standpoint. If we're going based on just age of buildings and utilities, Milton Hall would be the top of the list.
That's what I thought. Okay.
Roger,
And
any questions?
No.
No?
Good information.
Does anybody in the general public have any questions?
None more. So you were lying.
Could I ask a question?
Sure, the only thing I'd ask you would be to just identify yourself.
Sure, yeah, this is Jessica Miller with, I'm the director at Ashford Housing Authority. And so my question was in reference to the units, would you recommend using one of those air exchangers in each unit? Or how would you get fresh air into the units?
Yep. So there's a couple different ways you could do it at your building. I've seen them do those kind of little ventilation air units per room. I've seen them gang them up per 2 or 3. I think you guys have some room in your attic space, so maybe that space could be utilized to kind of add a couple of units and then duct into each of those rooms.
Okay.
That would be the best. Yeah, that would be the best scenario. But there's as much as I love the 100% outside air system, you know, there's 5 other more HVAC systems that, you know, we could talk about to go into place. But for your guys' building, that would make the most sense at this point.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Catherine, are you all set? Go ahead.
No, senior center. If I recall, if I recall, with the senior center, there was a comment that was made after you guys went out and, you know, did your perusal, went through all of the buildings, and that's something you would drop to the ground. It was kind of like, where could we fix it?
The senior center?
Yeah.
Well, I think again, the big problem is with your senior center is that there's no ventilation and there's nothing. And just the cooling it and heating through those areas where, you know, that's a lot of your older, you know, public is going and gathering in. So
Yeah.
big upgrades. Yeah. What happened?
Yeah. By the way, you had said that, you know, Knowlton wasn't really being used. Actually, it is. We have yoga classes and other kinds of events going on in there. So that is being used more than it was at the peak of COVID.
Sure. Okay.
Right.
Janet, I saw your hand. Go ahead.
I didn't get online fast enough to ask. I believe I'm Janet Bellamy. I'm a member of our Clean Energy Task Force. And I believe we were looking at the possibility of putting in mini split heat pumps in Knowlton that would give it air conditioning and get rid of our inefficient air conditioners. Is that something you think would be feasible?
Yep. So, and that was a lot of the systems that I'm talking about in the report is those heat pump VRF systems. The only problem is that does not give you ventilation air into the building. That only gives you heating and cooling. So if you guys wanted to provide an actual ventilation system, then we'd have to also add in a kind of ducted system, but that could be tied directly into those splits or a VRF system to kind of give you the best of both worlds. But those heat pump units are just providing heating and cooling via the refrigerant that's either cooled or heated via the heat pump. There's actually no ventilation air that's coming into those units.
Is-
But you could put a ventilation unit inside or alongside the mini split?
Yep. Yep, there's different ways to do it. You could do a ventilation unit that's inside that's ducted. You could do it outside and then bring the ductwork in. There's multiple ways to do it, but yes, that could be an option.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
I guess one of the challenges of that particular building, I was there with a contractor last week talking about split units.
Yep.
Is those walls are 16 and 18 inches thick, pure
Yep.
stone. So,
And listen, my recommendations are what's best based on the COVID-19 pandemic. You can still get away with building code by if the floor area is less than 4% of the operable window, you're allowed to have operable windows in your building and get away with not having mechanical ventilation. So you could do splits in Milton Hall and be okay with operable windows and not
Gotcha.
have to do a full renovation.
and those windows are operable from what I understand.
Yep, so you just gotta meet that the operable portion is either equal to 4% or greater than the actual floor area.
That's very helpful. Thank you.
Yes, very much. Anything else, Catherine? Anybody
No,
else out there?
I could probably ask questions about this all day, so, but I very much appreciate the work that you've done and definitely getting the ballpark information.
Yes.
Pricing information.
I will
Good.
follow up with you this week and get everything to you.
Awesome. And I heard that you folks were very nice to work with.
Oh, that's
No.
great to hear. I'm glad to hear it.
Yeah, and if I recall, your company was the one that also did an assessment of Ashford School a number of years ago.
Probably we do a lot of assessments. I was down at Region 4 today doing all the school assessments for Essex, Centerbrook, Deep River, and all their schools down there.
Yeah. So thank you, Brian.
Yeah, very
Brian,
welcome.
thanks very much. I'm sure we'll be going through the report a little more extensively now. And once you get us that other information, perhaps we can get together again.
Sure,
Um,
not a
would be
problem.
Talk about timeframes and that sort of thing.
Yep, nope, that sounds good. I'm always open for any questions and anything that comes up.
Thank you very much.
All right,
Bill,
thank you,
I'd like-
everybody.
Thank you.
Have a good
Bill,
night.
Bill, I'd like the report posted online as part of the minutes for this meeting,
Sure,
the full report so the public can see it.
I
I
agree.
think it will be helpful when we come to have our meeting about use of American Rescue Funds.
Yep.
And certainly planning, and I think that each of our members on our capital improvement committee should receive the report as well.
Thank you, Brian.
All right, thank you, everybody.
Have a good night. All right, unless there's an objection, I'm going to return to the agenda as stated. I believe it was item 6 we left off.
Mhm.
Hear from boards, commissions, committees, and departments. Anyone out there that needs to be heard, wants to be heard? Going once, going twice? Thank you. Old business, discuss reopening strategies, town facilities. Update relating to the holding of board and commission meetings. I have, Catherine, Roger, I've been trying to forward you, and I'm sure you're aware of them anyway. The reports as I'm getting from our local health department as well as the state, and I'm not getting anything from CDC right now. I'm a little reluctant to go ahead with anything else until we see how this B2 variant kind of works its ways out.
Yeah.
We're not hearing anything alarming from anybody, but obviously there's case counts that are going up. I think the good news that we're getting is that hospital rates aren't going up at the same, but I think until we see how this is going, we try to, my thought is we stay status quo right now and just keep on it. You know, I check it out on a daily basis and I report back to you folks as frequently as I hear any updates or whatever. So my impression will just hold that sort of status quo for now.
Yeah, I agree. Having 9 people come down with COVID or be diagnosed with COVID in town over a 2-week period is, yeah, a little unnerving considering we were doing so well.
It is, and then I was just hearing reports, in fact, today before I came back to the office. They're concerned that the figures that we're showing are probably not really what they are because of the high distribution of home test kits,
Yes.
that people are not reporting them to the state or to the feds the way they were. So, I mean, it's in our whole rationale, it's just something we've got to keep in mind. Again, I think the good news is that at least people that I've talked to locally that have come down with it, I've heard nobody say anything more than the effects similar to a bad cold. And it makes, let's hope that remains the case and that hospital numbers don't go up on a par with the case numbers.
Yeah, I'm glad that you're recognizing that there are a number of people that are not reporting.
Yeah, well, I think we have to. I mean, we were getting regular calls for test kits, and incidentally, for those of you out there, we still have kits available. We just ask that you call the Selectmen's office, and we'll make arrangements either for you to pick them up, or in cases where you have a unique situation where you can't leave the house, let us know, and we'll get them to you. But we still have them available. Item B, Ashford Advisory School Building Committee. I have heard no reports. I've got nothing since our last one from them. Item C, COVID updates. I think we just probably discussed that. Street lighting, we're still working with Eversource to get our famous 2 street lights that we're working for. It's like a major undertaking. I don't quite understand. American Rescue Plan. Again, Chris is working on, and we've been putting paperwork together for the board's consideration, ultimately in a somewhat near future. Having said what I just said about the COVID numbers, calling a public hearing, hopefully a hybrid meeting if we can do it and we're comfortable with it, to hear from the public and go over all of our priorities and things that we've got from the public, as well as review the surveys.
Yeah.
Ultimately, shortly thereafter, then calling a town meeting. I know there are some projects that I think we're all anxious to start undertaking, but
Bill, where does it stand on the pickleball courts?
right along with what we've just been talking about.
So,
It's at the top of our list, but we really have to review it with the public and then get a town meeting for approval of the dollar amount designation.
all right, so we did have somebody break their ankle on that court.
Recently,
It was, I believe, about last year.
well, I know it's a high priority with all of us, and we want to get going on. It's just unfortunately, I believe there's a protocol that we have to go through. We'll stay on it. That's all we can do. Item F, Trumco House Review Committee. Again, Bob Hurd is still convalescing. So we have no action on that. I really think that we're getting to a point, if the same status quo next time, we're gonna have to start thinking about some alternatives.
Bill, could we go back to the town meeting about the American Rescue Plan? What are you estimating now for when we would hold that?
Well, I think as I mentioned at our last selectmen's meeting, I was hoping to do a public hearing along with our first meeting in May. Obviously, that's not going to happen, but I would hope before the end of May, if we needed to call a special meeting after the public meeting, I would certainly be in favor of that. So I'm hoping next month, Catherine, we can bring these things to a head.
I think we
All right, thank you.
get through the tax season,
Yeah.
the budget season.
Anything else on that, Catherine?
No, I just want to make sure that we, are getting our plan for having the public hearing and
Yeah.
town meeting on it together so that people know what to expect.
Item
Okay.
G, I believe, based on our last meeting, discuss and or act on health insurance incentive. We're going to stay status quo till that materializes a little more. And then decide whether we want to revisit that or not. Item H, Route 89, encroachment. Chris has been working with our highway foreman, and we've just about got all that paperwork finished to go ahead with that final for the encroachment permit.
All right, so could you, on the health insurance incentive,
Yeah,
what is the plan for this?
well, if I recall right, at our last meeting, there was a motion made and was rejected. And our discussions were, we were gonna wait on seeing what the school was gonna be doing and what the impact, once we got our final insurance dollar figures, we would revisit that.
What's the update on what the school's doing?
They're on hold the way we are, waiting for the final figures, which we were told were gonna be in by the middle of April. Now we're being told it's either the end of April or the first week in May, until we get fine-tuned insurance figures.
So we won't know going into the referendum.
Lord willing, yes.
All right, and there's no pressure that can be put to bear on getting that information sooner than that?
I call every week.
And what are they telling you, that they haven't decided?
Well, our broker is telling me that they're not getting information back from the insurance companies.
Which insurance company?
The partnership program, the state partnership.
And if we don't go with state partnership, the state's partnership
The last
program,
I knew, United was looking at, I think they came down to a 16.9% increase.
thank you.
And if I recall right, pardon me, we've been working on an awful lot of figures lately. I believe our increase with the partnership program is less than 8% over what we had last year.
Okay, thank you. That's not a good feeling. In terms of them coming back with the figures, is that reliable for end of April, May, or did they
I'm told it's reliable.
assurances?
They're doing the best we can. I've talked to other people that are in the same scenario as we are.
Okay,
Oh,
Speeding issues.
item I, discuss speeding issues. I've asked Joe to order the signs we talked about at our last meeting, and we haven't got them in yet.
I'm sorry, would you say that one more time? You said,
I requested Joe order speeding signs. Speed
Oh.
limit signs,
okay,
because I'm told we're out of them. And we're waiting for those to come in.
okay, and then the,
Joe is also running very, very tight on his budget. Although I've asked him to get me dollar amounts, and I'll go to the Board of Finance if we need to. Joe's budget is really taking a hit because of the result of our storms we had last July and August. Totaled about probably $50,000 or $60,000 in expenditures that we weren't anticipating.
yeah. The, are we getting any reports off of the electronic signs? Because now we've had them up for quite a while.
Yeah, I haven't seen one for about a month. I'll try to double check on that, Catherine, but I know they're still taking readings and everything off of them from UConn.
Okay,
All right, 8, new business. Review correspondence received from the Ashford Sexton. Did you have a chance to read Jim's letter?
I did, yeah. No, he made good arguments, certainly in terms of, some of these dead oaks that we're worried about falling on our streets. Certainly we need to be concerned about them falling and damaging stones in our cemeteries. Good preventive maintenance there.
I thought it was also a good suggestion, and as long as the board has no objection, to ask our council to draw up some sort of a waiver or form for private property owners to let us go on.
Yep.
And remove trees or contract to have trees removed where we can. I thought he had a good suggestion with that.
Mhm.
Yeah, he's actually, he's been an excellent sexton.
Yeah.
The,
The
there,
tombstone
and
of the Reverend Hale tombstone. I'm not sure how he resolved that.
Yeah, I'd like to know I don't know, what do you guys think of that? I have no idea of the dollar value of the original tombstone. It's being kept at the academy.
Mhm.
Reading this, it seems, I think Jim thinks it's probably quite a collector's item and must have a dollar figure to it. I'm not sure. He talked about getting a replacement stone.
Mhm.
I'm not sure. I was going to ask him to see if he could follow up and get us a cost of that,
Mhm.
if that's something we wanted to consider. I've never given that much thought, but I mean, what do you guys think of that?
well, I am concerned about vandalism or thievery related to that stone.
Mhm.
So, I think, it's gonna take a little more planning than most would have.
I'm not sure how big that stone is. Have either
Mhm.
seen that stone?
I have not.
Yeah, we may have to do a little arm twisting if we end up putting it in the town clerk's vault.
We have no room for things in the town clerk's vault. Believe me, we have things in the town clerk's vault that shouldn't be in there. Some of them are moldering, so to speak.
Well, adding to that collection, I'm not too optimistic that's gonna happen.
But I'd say if Jim could kind of give us an idea of what would be an appropriate replacement stone, if
Yeah.
we're going to keep that stone as part of a historical artifact and protect it.
Yeah,
So
Yeah.
it would be nice to know what a replacement stone would cost.
well, I'll proceed that way with both of those two items.
Okay,
The third one, Church of Latter-day Saints did come to see me, a month or so ago. And they apparently have some volunteers that would love to help us clean up our cemeteries. And I know we have contractors that we have do that, but
Mhm.
frankly, I look to encourage volunteers and not discourage them.
absolutely. Yeah.
If we could come up with a happy medium, supervised or something like that, I'd certainly like them to maybe give us more expectations on what they want to do.
Mhm.
And encourage them to join in, on volunteering to clean up of the cemeteries. I'm not sure why it's just the two that Jim mentioned, but I think we ought to pursue that.
Yep.
Yeah, I think we definitely would appreciate the volunteerism. We also have to be concerned about the liability if someone gets hurt.
Yeah.
And the ground in the cemeteries are in various areas are uneven. So I know because I went and walked them with our sexton for one.
Yeah.
And that could be a little awkward.
Well, I'll follow up with town council about a waiver in the tree situation.
Right.
And let me pursue a little more with Jim about the tombstone.
Yeah, but Jim has made very good, positive suggestions.
I think so. I thought
Yes.
it was forward and let it-
And to tell you the truth, if you want to learn more about the history of the town in a really wonderful way, walk these cemeteries with Jim.
Mm.
He has a lot of history that he can share. And it was delightful walking with him, hearing more about the town and having it kind of, you're looking right at the headstone while he's talking about it. So anyway,
All right,
thanks.
item B under new business, authorize the first selectman to ratify a resolution relating to satisfying the requirements of the Homeland Security Program. Chris, do we have that document? You're muted if you're talking.
I included it in everybody's packet.
Okay, for some reason it got by me. Can I have a motion to authorize me to sign that? I think it's something we've done right along.
Have we, did you say we have this in our packet?
I didn't see it in mine, but
I don't have it in mine.
I saw it online. I saw a quick little blurb. Yes, I did see it on our packets that were emailed to us.
Oh, I printed mine. I don't see it.
It's kind of a funny looking document with lines and then little typed in.
Okay, and I would see no reason not to ratify that resolution. Can somebody, is it a long one? Can someone read it to me?
It's a long one.
Oh, okay,
I don't have it in front of me, but I
all
read it.
right.
do I have a motion or do you want to
Oh,
pass?
here it is. Here it is. I'm sorry. It came out on the back of something. Okay, that's not that bad.
It seems fairly straightforward.
Yeah. I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye,
Unanimous. Thank you, folks.
thank you.
Item C, we've taken care of already. Item D, discuss and act on entertainment of an offer received from the Woodhill Farm to continue planting and harvesting feed corn on approximately 21 acres of the existing fields on Cattle Lot property. As you probably know already, for years, there's been a private farmer, Mr. Tom Wells, fine gentleman locally, who's been farming that. I guess he had Cattle Rock's permission to do it. Had no revenue to the town or whatever.
So
Woodline-
is this from Tom Welch or is this from Kevin Burnham?
No, it's from Kevin Burnham.
All right, so
Tom wanted to
all
go in and maintain its status quo.
Yeah.
And go in and do it. And I told him to hold off until, because I had been contacted by this farm. And
where is this farm? Woodhill.
in Hampton,
And is this Kevin Burnham or is this Cahill that wants to use it?
it's Kevin Burnham
Okay,
with Woodhill Farm is the name of his farm.
so this is the same 21 acres that Tom Welch was using to grow corn?
Tom Wells,
Wells, I'm sorry,
no problem.
because I talked to Mr. Wells a number of times. I also talked to a neighbor down there where the entrance is, because the entrance is off of, what the heck road is that? I keep
Giant Oak.
thinking- Giant Oak, yeah. And, complaints about trucks, Tom Wells's trucks going through there to get to the bridge, to get to that property. And we repaired that bridge because it was washed out before. So we have two people. Is this two people that are interested in using the 21 acres?
Well, Tom Wells wants to continue as he's been doing and to no benefit of the town, other than maintaining the fields. Woodhill has advised us they'll pay us $50 an acre this year. Once they go in and fertilize whatever they're going to be doing, $75 for following years. I would only sign an agreement if we had a termination clause in there that the town could get out of it at our option. I think it's good. It's also, Joe Kalinowski met with them there. They also agreed on their own to upgrade the entrance and to do brush hogging and stuff to clean it up a little better than it is. So I would recommend we go with it.
I'm having a harder time with that because I have three things that I think about when I think about what I would call the Cattle Rock properties. And one is that I think that when we talk about use of the properties there, the selectmen should be working with the Ag Commission and the Conservation Commission on how the properties are used there, and that those, in particular, the Ag Commission, for any kind of farming that's done there, that we establish some rules about what can be grown there, and what the practices should be. And the Ag Commission is in the best position to give us advice about that. So that's one, and I understand that this is an existing field that has been used in the past. I also am aware, has he told us what he thinks he wants to grow there?
Feed corn, from what I'm told.
Okay, so with corn, what they do is they spray it twice during
Which
the
is what
growing
they've been
season.
doing there for years.
Yeah, I get that, but I also understand that they spray it twice with Roundup, 2 different points in time, to keep weeds down. And I don't know if you know what the practices are when it comes to growing corn, but that's one of them. So, here we are, the town is is, I believe, pursuing having the entire property remediated, making sure that we've covered everything. Also, from I would think that we would be giving first dibs, if you will, to a farmer in town versus someone coming in from someplace else. And I understand that you're looking at this as a money-making opportunity, but this is one person who's approached us with this kind of an offer. And we haven't offered it up to anybody else.
I'm not married to this situation. I inherited one where we've had somebody doing it for nothing under
Yeah,
no
I get that.
supervision or whatever for years. And
That
I
wasn't
guess-
us. It wasn't us.
Those get a paper rock, yep.
And so I'm certainly not married to this. I understand time is of the essence, but if the board is comfortable in not pursuing this or to getting advice from the Agricultural Commission, which I'm certainly not opposed to doing. I mean, they are advisory authorities for us. We can hold off on that. I'm told that to do whatever preparation they have to do on those fields, that we're starting to run short on time, but making $50 an acre on this in the big picture is not going to break the town to pass.
No,
26 acres, 13.
yeah, and their time constraint is not our issue. That's their issue. Had they come earlier, we would have had better opportunity to have our Ag Commission look into it. But I would like to go on the advice of the Ag Commission, and also to make sure that whatever these pieces of the property are being used for when it comes to farming, that we have some kind of rules put in place about how that should be done, and what's allowed and what's not allowed, and how much traffic is going to be coming through that Giant Oak Road, which is a small road. I can tell you it's pretty rural when you get in there, because you got chickens all over the place. There's a lot of complaints about them, but it's not a high traffic area. And the trucks are fairly big. So, and I can appreciate the fact.
Can I make this suggestion then, that we carry this on our agenda to our next one? And I notice Art is on the meeting here. Perhaps we can ask them to give us some input, hopefully before our next meeting.
We'd be happy to. We have a meeting Thursday this week, and I can get it on the agenda for that. So
Very
we can get
good.
back to you pretty quick.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Very good.
and just from a selectman perspective, I would be more inclined to be supportive of a farmer who is an Ashford farmer versus someone who has properties, is renting properties in, various towns. I'd like to see the Ashford farmers get first dibs or be able to match offers, that kind of thing.
Art,
I can
you were
tell you
trying
that
to
the town of
recommend-
Mansfield already does this. They request RFPs quite well in advance. I think I sat on one of their review committees. They invite other town ag commissions to review so that there's no conflicts of interest. And
Good.
they get them all from local Mansfield farmers. And they do it early. I think their review of the RFPs took place in January. And it was annually. And
That makes
so-
sense.
So So it's done in time, and it's well laid out about making permanent improvements and things like that, whose responsibility that is. And I know, so I've been involved in that with Mansfield, so we'd be happy to try and get some pointers and get some things together for the Board of Selectmen.
Appreciate that very much, Art.
Yeah, and Bill, do we know if Tom Wells put down rye as a cover crop at the end of last season?
Do you know? I don't know.
think so.
I don't think so. But I'm
You
not
know,
sure.
you want the cover crop to keep weeds down and everything, so it doesn't all go feral, if you will. Okay, so I think that's great to have it on the agenda going forward and have our Ag Commission take a good look at it. And also to make sure that whatever contract we do put in place is one that is has a definite start and end, and how the property would be left at the end as well.
Thank you, Art. So we will carry this item on our next Selectmen's agenda for discussion. Item E, Otis elevator contract status. I am less than happy with the service that we received from Otis Elevator, particularly pertaining to Milton Hall.
I echo that.
We are in the process of getting at least one other estimate proposal from another contractor, and we'll get more if we can. So it's still an open item, but I'll be making a recommendation no later than our next meeting to perhaps make a contract change there.
Yeah, there'll be, if I understand correctly, there'll be a bit of a penalty to it, but it may be worth it. That elevator, every day that elevator is not working, we're in violation of the American Disabilities Act.
Well, we've had it working now. Knock on wood, probably shouldn't say anything, but it's been working for about a week. Before that, it was down for a day. They did come right out the same day. Before that, it had worked for 3 weeks. And they advised us it was an operator's error that put it down again. Before that, Catherine, you know, and I, the thing was down like for 3.5 months.
Right.
And it was
Right.
like chasing our tail to get them out here, and frankly, very frustrating and what I considered unprofessional. But
And they were charged every time.
so I'll keep everybody posted on that.
Okay, so you're saying it's working now?
It is working, and it is, yes.
Okay, good.
This moment in time.
Today it's working. Tonight it's working. Ask me tomorrow. Okay, a review request from Sustainable Connecticut for designation of a municipal employee, elected leader, or other individual designated to serve as the liaison for the homeless services in the town of Ashford. I did write an email back today. And you're gonna have to forgive me, I forget her name. Was it Melanie? I know somebody else, Kit, has stepped forward and offered to do this. But I'm wondering why, and unfortunately I was gonna talk to Melissa, but she's been out sick for several days. I'm wondering why we would choose anybody other than her. I've only had, since I've been first selectman, again, maybe 2 instances of it, but involving homeless people. Last was a young couple that was sleeping in the woods for almost a week or a little over, and their father came down from Massachusetts and got them out and brought them, and I know she took care of them immediately, but it would seem to me that it would make sense to designate Melissa.
I thought, you know,
I'm
based
open for
upon,
suggestions.
I didn't hear from Melissa. I thought that Melissa wanted Kit to do this, that she thought she was appropriate. Kit has experience. I get that Melissa has a lot of experience as well, but Kit has worked with the homeless in other locations as well. So did Melissa indicate that she wanted this role?
My only comment is that's what she's doing now. That's who I call in, and from my observation and little dealings that we've had, she's handled it expertly. And I have no idea she had any desire not to do it any longer. I was hoping, but again, she's been out since early last week, not feeling well.
So can we put this on our next agenda?
I have no problem with that. I just had the impression from the folks with sustainability, and I don't know if Janet or somebody else want that there was some time issues here.
Yeah, well, there isn't anymore. We put in our initial report, and they're going to come back to us with what else we need to do.
Okay,
So the final won't be till August.
okay.
I believe Melissa was talked to about this, and Kit does have relations and volunteers with the
Right.
United Way of the homeless shelters in Willimantic. But
That was what,
it could
yeah.
be addressed at the next meeting.
Okay.
that was my
why don't we
understanding
carry
as
it?
well.
Because nobody talked to me and Melissa didn't about her changing whatever. So we'll get all that ironed out and address it next week. I was concerned because somewhere Janet, I had heard that they were concerned about a timeline or something that we had to meet.
Yeah, thank you, but it's okay now.
Okay.
It would have been nice for what was submitted, but we can take care of it afterwards.
All right, item G, board, commissions, committee appointments. Inland wetland and water courses is recommended by the chairman of the Wetland Commission, fill the alternate vacancy created by the resignation of Ken Gary with Robert or Bob Brizard. Term to expire June 1st of 23.
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
I know Bob and I know he'll do a dedicated service and he's anxious to get onto the committee. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye,
And a thanks to him for volunteering.
absolutely. Recreation Committee, reappointment of Neil Gordon and Garth Bean as regular member. Terms to expire April of 27. Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, unanimous. We
Have you,
also have,
Bill, you had someone that you were talking with about going on to that commission? Have you heard anything more?
and we're still talking. They're very interested. And I understand Sherry was on vacation last week and was not able to sit down and talk with him. I understand that's going to happen this week. So I'm assuming at the latest by our next meeting, we will be coming forward with that name.
Good.
All right, Commission on Aging, fill a vacant, created by the resignation of Elaine Wilmer Pandolfo. We have nobody at this time. I am still working on somebody that is recuperating from a hospital stay that I think is eventually going to confirm she can handle it, but so that's open.
On the Commission on Aging, do you know if they're meeting regularly?
I believe they are. I've seen notices that Kit has posted as agent for the elderly, and it seems they've been meeting regularly.
Okay.
I am going to meet with them because I'd like our board to at least get sort of quarterly reports on activities and give us their input for our own information. I know that they are all very dedicated, those members of that committee, and also want to show our appreciation. Chris, are there any tax refunds?
No, hold on. I've got a note here. Just that
No, there are
it was
no.
supposed to be added to the agenda
Oh,
from Art. Was that, or was that last meeting?
no, I think
sorry.
that this is this meeting.
Okay.
I'm sorry, what are we talking about here? A note from Art, what?
Art Tollins wanted to. It was in my paperwork.
I guess the Agriculture Commission has a recommendation. Art, do you want to address that?
Yes, we appointed Meg Brow to fill Carl Faltzgraff's seat a couple of months ago, and that expired on March 15th of this year. We'd like to have Meg reappointed to fill the term for 3 years, alternate seat through, let's see, through March 15th of 2025.
Okay.
I'd like to add that to the agenda, if that's okay with you,
Do I
Will.
have a second to that?
Yeah.
We have a second. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, do you want to make that motion, Catherine or Roger?
Yes, and that is, the term is to expire when?
March 15th of 2025. It's an alternate
it's-
seat.
And it starts when?
Thanks.
March 15th of 2022.
Okay, I make the motion to appoint
Meg Brow.
Broush to the commission for a period of March 15th, 2022, as an alternate. Period of March 15th of 2022 to March, I guess, 15th of 2025.
I'll second.
Any more discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And that's
Thank
another
you.
thank you. Thank you for someone volunteering.
Yes, thank you, Meg. All right, Chris, any tax refunds?
No,
No?
nope.
Very good. I will take a motion.
Well,
Motion to adjourn?
I'll
Roger
second.
made it,
Or-
Catherine second.
Yes.
Any discussion? Thank you, folks.
Aye. Thank you.
Aye, aye.
Have a good night.